On the night of June 5, 1944, the world was about to witness one of the most crucial and intense military operations in history, the Allied invasion of Normandy. Among the countless soldiers involved in the D-Day invasion, one man's determination and bravery stood out. His name was Private Jake McNiece. A member of the infamous Filthy 13, McNiece was part of a select group of paratroopers who were tasked with securing strategic points behind enemy lines.
The mission was clear: drop behind enemy lines, secure vital bridges, and prepare for the oncoming assault of Allied forces. What followed was a story of chaos, bravery, and an undying will to survive. This is the story of Private Jake McNiece and the Filthy 13 during D-Day. The night was heavy with tension as Private Jake McNiece and the Filthy 13 prepared for the D-Day drop. They were flying high in their C-47 Skitrans, navigating the dark skies toward Normandy. However, fate had other plans. McNiece's aircraft was hit, sending it spiraling off course. As the plane was damaged, McNiece and his comrades were forced to jump into enemy territory. Far from their intended target, McNiece, alone and confused in the chaos of the jump, found himself miles away from his target, Alzen. Despite the confusion of being separated from the rest of his unit and the treacherous drop into hostile territory, McNiece had one thing on his mind: his mission. Landing in a dense forest, McNiece immediately gathered himself and began to move cautiously. The noise of gunfire and explosions filled the air as the invasion commenced, but McNiece's resolve was unwavering. He was a soldier, and his mission was far from over. With his team scattered across the landscape, McNiece knew he had to regroup. He began navigating through enemy territory, relying on his military training and instincts to survive. As he moved forward, the eerie quiet of the forest was broken by the distant sound of a German machine gunner. McNiece knew that time was of the essence. He had to find his men. His mind raced as he moved from cover to cover. Suddenly, he encountered a lone machine gunner's assistant, an unfortunate soul separated from his comrades in the chaos of battle. Without hesitation, McNiece neutralized the threat, demonstrating both precision and cold determination. As he continued on his path, McNiece came across a small group of surviving Filthy 13 members. His heart swelled with relief. They were alive, and he was not alone. They were scattered, yes, but they could still fight. McNiece quickly rallied his team, forming a small but determined fighting force. He was the leader they needed, and with his guidance, they set off toward their objective. The bridges they were tasked with securing. McNiece's leadership would soon be tested. The mission was critical, but McNiece was about to face a challenge that would test his courage and defiance. He received orders from Colonel Howard Johnson, commanding him to hold a defensive perimeter with his men and wait for reinforcements. However, McNiece was not one to sit idle. He understood the importance of the bridges, and he knew they couldn't afford to wait. The success of the mission hinged on the destruction of these key strategic points, and McNiece believed that holding back was a mistake. His orders were clear, but so was his determination. With the Filthy 13 in tow, McNiece decided to ignore the defensive orders and press forward. The mission had to be completed, and there was no room for hesitation. With a defiant attitude and a drive to succeed, McNiece led his team to the designated bridges. The path ahead was treacherous, filled with enemy patrols and obstacles. But McNiece and his men kept moving forward, trusting in their training and each other. They would not be stopped by orders, fear, or the enemy. They were on a mission, and nothing would get in their way. After a harrowing journey through enemy-held territory, McNiece and his team arrived at the Dove River bridges. The task at hand was to secure and rig the bridges with demolition charges to prevent the Germans from using them. But as they prepared, the stakes grew higher. They were now deep within enemy lines, and the German forces were not far behind. McNiece's team quickly got to work, securing the area and preparing the demolition charges. But the Germans weren't going to let them have an easy time. Within hours, German forces launched a series of attacks to retake the bridges. The Filthy 13 were vastly outnumbered, but they had one advantage: their determination. For 5 days, McNiece and his men fought to hold the bridge. The sounds of gunfire, explosions, and the cries of the wounded filled the air as they repelled wave after wave of German assaults. Each time they thought the Germans might break through, they found a way to hold their ground. The tension was thick, and every minute felt like an eternity. But McNiece and his men knew that they couldn't give up. If they failed, the entire Allied invasion could be jeopardized. The responsibility was heavy, but McNiece never faltered. He led from the front, fighting alongside his men and making sure that no matter what, the mission would be a success. Just when it seemed like they had held the bridge against all odds, disaster struck. As if the situation wasn't dire enough, American P-51 Mustangs, supporting the operation from the air, mistakenly targeted the bridge, destroying it in a friendly fire incident. The blast was catastrophic, causing casualties among McNiece's men and damaging their position. But the battle wasn't over. Despite the setback, McNiece and his squad refused to give up. The Germans were closing in for a final assault, and McNiece's men had to hold their position at all costs, in the midst of the chaos. The Filthy 13 managed to repel the final German assault. They fought with everything they had left, holding the bridge until reinforcements could arrive. Soon after, American backup finally arrived, rescuing McNiece and his team. They had completed their mission, but at great cost. The bridges had been destroyed, and the Allies had secured a crucial foothold in Normandy. It was a victory, but one earned through incredible sacrifice. The story of Private Jake McNiece and the Filthy 13 is one of unyielding determination, courage, and leadership in the face of overwhelming odds. Separated from their unit, defying orders, and holding key bridges against superior forces, they became an example of the heroism that defined D-Day. McNiece's actions were instrumental in the success of the Allied invasion, and his legacy, along with the legacy of the Filthy 13, lives on as a testament to the bravery and sacrifice of the men who fought on that fateful day. The dust settled and the invasion began to unfold. McNiece and his men knew they had accomplished something extraordinary. They had played a vital role in the liberation of Europe, and they had done so with bravery and resolve that would forever be remembered. This is the story of Private Jake McNiece and the Filthy 13, who, against all odds, fought not just for survival, but for victory. Their courage and defiance were the foundation of the success of D-Day, and they will always be remembered as heroes. The end.